I danced on stage with my work husband. My real husband filmed and left me. Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth, and I'm 35 years old. I didn't think that everything would turn out like this. This life that is nothing but empty. So empty, and yet that emptiness seems to hurt more than any physical wound would. I thought I lived well. I thought that I did things perfectly, and that I could get away with everything. But sadly, everything ended up right in my face and destroyed everything I've built, especially my marriage of 10 years. How could I have thought that he would be there? I didn't even think he suspected me enough. I thought I could really hide my crime, my affair. I thought I could hide it and never get caught, but here I am, regretting and wishing everything was different. That I didn't stupidly do the things I did and expect that everything will stay the same. That I will still be married to Edward and have my kids living in the same space as me and also enjoy an affair without any worries. Edward caught me, and his revenge had been brutal. I had always jokingly called Sam my work husband even at home, and I thought everything was normal. Edward never reacted when I said things like that, so I thought it was perfectly normal. But then that day, that horrible day that is imprinted on my mind and will never leave no matter how much time passed, that day that I danced on stage with my work husband, I didn't know that my real husband had filmed everything and had used it to condemn me out of our marriage, our children's lives, my job, and even out of society. Everything just happened so fast, and now it feels like the days are passing by so slowly and ever so painfully. Every day a reminder of the perfect life I had and the things I did to ruin it all. I married Edward after a year of meeting him. I was young and I believed that he was the one for me. He truly turned out to be. He was just perfect, the perfect husband, one that every woman prayed to have. He was kind, patient, considerate, and very caring. He was an ever-present and attentive father to our kids, and he was everything and more. I was fresh out of university when I met him, and when we got married, I had only started my job. But within a year of marriage, because of how hard I worked, I got 2 promotions in 1 year, which was almost impossible because of how strict the promotions were at work. But I was able to do it with Edward's help. He never complained when I came home late from work. Rather, he would offer to pick me up. He would cook me dinner and even massage me until I fell asleep. Even though our relationship, and especially our sex life, suffered the aftermath of how hard I worked, Edward never forced me to do anything. When I complained I was too tired, he would allow me sleep and didn't demand any right to my body. Our plans? Well, my plan had been that we would start having kids when my career was up to the point I wasn't scared to relax, and in my head that was 3 or 4 years to come. I even planned for it to be 6 years, but I told Edward to give me 3 or 4 years, and he was cool about it. But I got pregnant 2 years into our marriage. It was unplanned and I was not happy about it. I didn't want to be pregnant, and it had been Edward's fault. He had been too eager that night and had forgotten about protection, and I woke up late the next morning and had to rush to work, so I forgot to use any birth control. Edward was very happy, though, and he begged me to keep the baby. I agreed on the condition that he get the baby a nanny immediately after I gave birth, because I wasn't willing to stop working. I went to work throughout my pregnancy and only took a break for 2 months after I gave birth. Amazingly, I gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Edward was faithful, and he did employ a nanny for our babies and adjusted his working schedule so he could assist the nanny with caring for them. But I wasn't willing to sacrifice anything. I didn't want my career to suffer, and that was because my field was dominated by male gender, and it took a lot of hard work to get to the top as a female, and I was willing to break that record, so I continued working really hard until I lost focus of what was right and what wasn't. When I finally got the post I was working so hard to get for years, it didn't give me the satisfaction I thought it would. I had always thought that getting that final promotion would make me so fulfilled in all the years I ignored and abandoned birthday parties of my kids and my husband. All those years of never making it to dinner or even staying as long as breakfast. All of those years of not even getting to know what the twins liked or disliked. I thought it would be worth it. But instead, I felt empty instead of fulfilled. I felt unaccomplished, but instead of trying to right the wrong. Instead of seeing the truth, in my head, I managed to turn the truth into something else. I started to blame Edward for everything. He was the reason why the kids loved spending time with him, rather than me now that I had the time to do that. He was the reason the kids were awkward with me. He was the reason our sex life was nothing to write home about. I blamed him for everything that was going wrong instead of seeing the truth for what it was. Even though Edward was still there, he still tried to breach the walls between the kids and I. He still tried to take me out on dinner dates so we could talk and rekindle our feelings again. I wasn't shaken by it because I felt he was trying to make up for all his mistakes. So I started to argue with Edward. I argued a lot with him, blaming him for everything. Edward would say nothing. He would only try to calm me down so the kids didn't hear us arguing, but it only made me more furious. It felt like he was trying to paint me as the bad parent, and we would further argue. Eventually, when the arguments got too much, Edward started to avoid me. He even started to sleep in a different room because I would complain that he snored too much. I was left alone with all of my bitterness, and instead of trying to win my family back, I hated Edward even more for everything that was happening. I hated that he didn't touch me even when I walked past him in the most sexy lingerie I could find. I hated that he didn't feel tempted to come into the room at night, even when I left the door slightly opened at night. I didn't think that I had pushed him too far. And things eventually took a bad turn when Sam came to work for our company. I needed a secretary, and he was brought in to work with and for me. Seeing Sam felt like the answer to my prayers. Work became even easier for me. Sam was like an organized robot. He organized everything for me. He even reminded me of my husband's and kids' important events like birthdays or school events, even though I didn't do much with those types of information. He made everything really easy for me, and I liked it very much, especially when Sam would compliment me. When he would step into my office with the coffee he knew I loved and a smile on his face. When he would compliment my new hairstyle and dress. When he would sit and listen to me rant about my family and drink myself to stupor. He would drop me home or sometimes at a hotel so my family didn't have to watch my silly behavior that I exhibited when I was drunk. I knew I was starting to feel a little more than appreciation for everything he did towards me, but I ignored it, even though I allowed everything he did. Until that day when I woke up in that hotel room stark naked, and beside me was Sam, also stark naked. I was so shocked because I didn't remember anything that happened between us, but Sam had remembered. He told me I begged him to stay with him, and that I had started to undress in front of him, and even begged him for it, saying that my husband hadn't touched me in years. I believed his words because I thought Sam would never lie about it. I felt guilty coming back home that morning in the same dress as the night before, knowing what I had done. I didn't want Edward finding out about the things that I did, so I quickly took a quick shower, wore another dress, and left the house for work. That first night together with Sam happened again, and several times after that. I sincerely thought that once was enough, and Sam had promised not to tell anyone because he knew it would destroy my home, and apparently his relationship too. But then, seeing Sam at work every day behaving like that night hadn't happened between us was somehow getting to me. I couldn't even behave normally around him because of how much I was thinking of that night. I didn't remember anything, and I found myself wondering about it. And eventually, that day at the office, after working so late with Sam on a proposal that was to be presented the next day, I convinced him to have a glass of wine with me, and before long I was straddling him and kissing him, and he was kissing me back and removing my clothes. I wasn't even thinking at all, not of my husband and definitely not my kids. I was just doing what I felt was right at that moment. Sam and I had sex in my office that evening, and when I got home, I was met with a surprise. Edward was in our bedroom with flowers and a box of my favorite chocolate. When I came in, he stood up and kissed me for the first time in months, and he begged me to settle things. He told me that he wanted to go back to how we were. He didn't like how things were between us. He wanted the tension gone from the house, and he was willing to do anything I wanted. I had to force myself not to betray my emotions that night because of what I had just done before coming into the house, so I did nothing but smile and nodded in agreement. Edward was happy I didn't put up a fight, and he hugged me and kissed me again. He even cuddled me in bed that night, and for the first time in forever, I felt like things were finally going back to their place. For a whole week, I was really happy. I felt like I could resist the temptation to sleep with Sam, even though it was very difficult, particularly because Sam kept coming up with different work excuses to come into my office and suggest different ways for us to revisit the last time we had at the office. And each time, I found it more difficult to not give in. But I was really determined not to ruin things between Edward and I. The kids were starting to warm up to me. At least they let me tag along on their picnics with their father on weekends. I was starting to feel like I had a home after all. But I still found myself thinking about Sam and that time at the office. When Edward and I started having sex again, it didn't feel the same anymore. It had probably done with Edward because he kissed my cheek and thanked me for the amazing sex before sleeping off. But I couldn't sleep off. I didn't feel anything after sleeping with Edward. It didn't feel the same way having sex with Sam had felt. I tried to ignore the feeling, but it eventually got worse when I went to the office and Sam was making it even more tempting to get with him again. I gave in. I shouldn't have, but I did. I gave in and had sex with Sam again after only 1 week after resisting. I know it was terrible, but I couldn't help myself. Sam was like an addiction. I couldn't do without it. It became an everyday thing for us. Sam and I couldn't go a day without doing something really sexual, or even having sex itself, but I was able to balance it. Or that's what I thought. Things were finally fine at home. Edward and the kids had my time as much as they liked, and Sam also had my time too at work. Even though things between Sam and I escalated beyond what it was. He even started texting me when I was spending time with my family, even though I asked him not to. Edward, of course, who noticed little things, noticed the persistent texting, especially during the time I was on leave for a month. Sam was always disturbing me, asking for us to meet up, and I couldn't leave without an excuse. I didn't have many friends, and the ones I had, Edward knew them so well, and using them as an excuse would get me caught, so I couldn't. When Edward noticed, I told him it was my secretary asking me some questions about some work stuff, because he couldn't handle it on his own. To avoid suspicion, I started to even tell some stories about Sam to Edward, talking about how everybody at work jokingly called him my work husband because of how close we were at work. I told Edward that Sam did his job excellently and I would always praise him, and because of that, they thought of it as me favoring him above them and would always tease Sam about it. Edward said nothing about it, and when he didn't, I thought he just accepted my explanation of the persistent calls and texts I was getting. For that whole month, I only met up with Sam 5 times, and it was really frustrating for both of us. But I didn't want Edward suspecting anything, so it couldn't go beyond that. Even though we resorted to the only means available, which was sending each other nudes and even sex chatting whenever Edward was away at work. I was so eager to resume back to work so I could continue my everyday affair, and when I finally did, I felt everything was back to the way it should be. I didn't know that Edward was starting to suspect me. He must have noticed from the way I kept my phone with me at all times, even when I had to use the bathroom or while in the kitchen. Things I would generally not do before. I had always fought with Edward whenever he brought his phone to the kitchen because I was scared of kitchen hazards in the early years of our marriage. But I was doing that comfortably then. I didn't think he noticed my suspicious moves. On days when I would sneak out of the room because Sam would call me at night so I could talk dirty and ease his sexual tension. I thought I was perfectly safe and would never get caught with how careful I was being, but I was so wrong because everything ended up exploding in my face. After I got back to work and started having that constant affair like I was before, I stopped sleeping with Edward. I was either too tired or too stressed to have sex. The truth was I couldn't bring myself to sleep with Edward and Sam at the same time because I felt somehow guilty. But I still couldn't get myself to stop what I was doing with Sam. On weekends, I still would talk about my work husband, who did something funny at work. Perhaps it was because any time I mentioned work, it was always about Sam and no one else that Edward grew suspicious. Either way, I will never know. I will know exactly how he got to find out because Edward had not been ready to say anything else besides the fact that he never wanted to see me again. I'm left to second guess, to keep thinking almost to the point of madness of how exactly he had known. Perhaps it was a combination of the little mistakes I had made that Edward saw and concluded. But that day, that particular day, the office was having a mini party to celebrate a project that we won. I already told Edward about it. We were supposed to bring a +1, but I didn't want Edward meeting Sam. So I lied and told him it was only for the people at the office, and it was something really small. Edward didn't behave as if he even suspected me or anything. I didn't suspect that he was going to do the things that he did afterwards. I had no idea what to wear, It was Sam who chose the dress he wanted me to wear because, according to him, he wanted me to look flashy and sexy at the party. I had taken a few pictures with the dresses I wanted him to choose from, and he had chosen one red short sleeveless dress. I knew that Edward didn't exactly like me showing off my body, especially in a dress like that, so I wore something different from home and had stopped at a restaurant and begged to use their restroom so I could change, and then I went to the party. The party was held at the company, and when I stepped in, it was already in full swing. I found Sam easily. He was dancing with a lady from my office, but she didn't work directly for me, and I was jealous but had to pretend otherwise. So I sat alone and just sipped champagne. But the party got boring soon, and after the boss, who had just shown up and said a few things before leaving us to enjoy the party, some of the workers decided to spice everything up with some fun games. Games that I should never have participated in. I should have sat there or even left at that point, but I joined the game. I was happy when everyone cheered me on when I joined the game, despite the fact that I was married. I did all naughty things, and then eventually I was too tipsy and threw all cautions into the wind. I wasn't too drunk to know what I was doing, but I was just too tipsy to care about anything else, including my family at that moment. I danced with Sam at the party when the song came on again, and I even kissed him. Sam had panicked and looked around to see if anyone had noticed, but everyone was either too drunk or too interested in their own partners to care. Feeling even more bold, I led Sam back to my office and begged him to have sex with me there, and he obliged. Right there with everybody else downstairs and partying, Sam and I were having sex in the office. Eventually, the night came to an end, and because I couldn't drive back home, and because I didn't even want the kids or Edward seeing me like that, I had to spend the night in a hotel. Luckily, or unluckily for me, the next day was a Sunday, which meant I could sleep off the alcohol with no bother about work. But when I got home the next day in the afternoon after oversleeping at the hotel, the house was quite strange, Dot. The kids weren't in their rooms, and Edward wasn't home either. I tried to call him, but he didn't pick up any of my calls. It wasn't until the evening of that day that Edward had returned home, but without the kids, and when I asked him, he ignored me completely. He had simply tossed his phone at me and confused. I had taken it and realized that a video was paused on it, but I was filled with dread when I realized what the video was all about. There I was, right in that video, in the arms of another man, dancing and laughing hysterically, while he squeezed my butt tightly, and then at the end I leaned in to kiss him. I tried to speak, but nothing was coming out. I felt so scared for the first time since I was married to Edward. Edward told me he knew I was cheating, but waited for the right moment to catch me with evidence. He told me that he wanted me to sign the divorce papers he had apparently prepared for a day like that, one where he would have evidence to do away with me forever. He told me that the divorce agreement also had a clause about the kids. He wanted me to relinquish my rights to the kids. Begging wasn't an option because Edward wasn't even listening to me at all, even when I was on my knees and crying hard. He told me that he was giving me 3 days to leave the house and never return. And he also told me that my parents probably wanted nothing to do with me anymore because he had shown them that video, as he wanted me to suffer for what I've done. I kept crying, and even remembering the whole thing and how it had played out still makes me cry so bitterly. Edward left me. He left me and also ruined my relationship with every other person I knew, because somehow the news got out to our friends and even everybody else, and now I'm ashamed to even step out of my little room that I stay in. Sam ran away after we were both discovered, and he didn't just run away after destroying my life and marriage. He did something even more horrible. Apparently, Sam had been using my signature to steal money from the company's account, and now I'm in a lot of debt because of it. I got fired from work and still have to continue to pay the debts or go to jail. I have nobody to turn to for help. My parents won't even see me at all, and the few friends that I thought I had all refuse to be involved in anything that concerns me anymore. All of my savings and life's work were worth nothing when it came to the debts that Sam acquired for me. I have nothing left, not even a penny to my name, and having to work different jobs just to pay back these debts is so draining. I know wishing that I could turn back the hands of time would be useless, because I'm sure that even fate detests me for all the despicable things I did to my husband. Now, sadly, my ex-husband. I have no rights anymore to him or my kids. Everything's all gone, and I regret it so much. All I'm left with is a broken me which can never be fixed.